Hi everyone. Welcome to our Meet to Marry, Finding the One, True Love Success series. I'm so excited to introduce Alison Cohen today, who's joining us to share her beautiful love story with her true love and how it happened to inspire you. Because that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, to inspire you about what's possible in love. So Alison is actually in Jerusalem right now. She's there for a number of months with Todd, and she is a really self-aware, accomplished person. She's a mindfulness coach and teacher. She teaches public high school teachers mindfulness, and she's a mentor, and she's out there making a big difference in the world. And I'm going to let her tell you more about who she is and what she's about and her story. So Alison, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Thank you, Bari. It's an honor.
Yay, so excited. This is my favorite part about hearing when you've found true love and how it's developed. So let's start at the beginning. What prompted you originally to get in touch with me about love, about your situation?
So I was working as a public high school teacher, and I was working extremely long hours. And after quite a few years of working in the New York City public schools, I noticed this sense of restlessness, and I couldn't quite name it.
Yeah.
But I was also pretty burnt out, and I decided it's time to transition out of this. And I think what I had not fully realized until I quit my job was that I had in part been keeping myself so busy to not have to be with some of the questions, fears, disempowering stories that were cycling internally, especially regarding love and regarding romance. And I had been meditating for years at that point, and also I'd been in therapy. And that, interestingly, that summer, after I quit my job, I experienced this clarity that something was just not right on the dating and relationships front.
Right.
And it really wasn't. And to use a word that I remember you using with me, actually in our very first conversation, there was this heaviness that was present.
Yeah.
And I could feel it in the body. And also, I noticed that I was feeling extremely fed up. And there was just this sense of being in my own way or getting in my own way and not knowing either why or really what to do about it. I mean, I was meditating, I was going to therapy, I was sitting silent retreats. And one thing I will say for all of those modalities, which I continue to engage in, is that they did allow for me to develop a level of strength or a kind of container that could be with what came up in your course.
Yes.
And all the revelations. But then what happened was somehow I had happened upon a little blurb about you. And I remember initially, it was in a magazine, being really dismissive of it. But this person thinks they can coach people to how to figure out dating and relationships. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I went online that summer in this mode of feeling extraordinarily fed up. And I watched this webinar a free webinar. And in the webinar, you told your own story. And for the first time, I had language for my own experience. That you explained that these were the folks you were engaging with, dating, attracting, lovely humans. These were the people you wanted to be with. There was this significant gap. And at some point you realized, wait a second, the only thing all these situations have in common is me. So there's got to be a blind spot underneath. So I watched this video, and at the end of the video, there was this sense, it was a glimmer of hope. But sometimes I think when we've gone so long without having something we want come to fruition, it's so easy to extinguish our own hope. And so what I did is I asked one of my soul friends on the planet a person with whom I can be extremely vulnerable. I said, can you watch this webinar and make sure that I'm not totally losing it, that you think this person could actually help me?
I love it.
And she's such a good friend that she not only, she watched it carefully, and then she said, Alison, she said something like, this is exactly who you need to be talking to. And so at that point, I signed up for a free session with you, which I sobbed my way through. And then here I am.
Oh, amazing. And I am so happy you did. I am so happy you did. Because Alison, you're just such a self-aware, articulate person and so prototypical of how we are when we're struggling in love and we know what's not working. So
Yeah.
what were you seeing in your life at that time when you were searching in a practical way? Were you just meeting wrong people not matching? When you were so fed up, what did that look like?
It looked like a few different things. I mean, now I joke about it, the categories of men that I used to date.
Yeah.
Basically, I was either dating people who were not actually emotionally available, and that was a big piece.
My specialty.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The other piece was that, and this is extremely significant, I noticed a pattern that with each person I dated, it felt like there was some significant aspect of who I am and what I value that I could not share with that person. Mm-hmm. And I would compartmentalize it, and I would say, oh, but we connect in all these other ways, but this piece that is so part of my heart, I cannot share with this person. Right. And it often related to spirituality and religion. I grew up in a Jewish family. My parents are extremely open to date whoever you want to date, et cetera, which I appreciate. And I kept dating non-Jewish men, despite the fact that all I wanted to do on Friday night was go to Shabbat services, Jewish Sabbath services, and host a dinner. So that seems a little, so there was that piece. And then I think the other was there was often a sense in the relationships that I was in of being a teacher in some way. And I wanted mutual teaching in my relationship. I didn't want to do exactly what I was doing in my work life. And the last, which is just funny, is I kept attracting basketball coaches. Who knows what that's about? And that part I decided wasn't a problem as much as it was just funny. And the guy I'm currently with is not a basketball coach, but he is obsessed with the NBA. So who knows?
Who knows what that karma is all about? That's amazing. Right. So your experience is very typical of people like ourselves who are attracting emotionally unavailable. And there's something so deep in our core that's so important, Judaism or a value of having children or being connected and deeply understood. And I remember in our coaching, one of the things that's so important to you is social justice and that type of work and making a difference in the world. And then when we're dating and meeting people who are not loving or appreciating the best parts of us, it's very painful. It's very frustrating, right? I totally understand that. And then in your journey, so you came, we started working together, and you started to have these big shifts. So what would you say was one of the most memorable parts of the journey that was like a turning point for you? What would you say that
was? So relatively early on, because I was diligently doing the homework and doing my best to be honest with myself. And actually, I remember being on a coaching call, and for folks who are new to this program, I mean, there's a component in which, and it may have shifted since I did it, Bari, but where you, after having us do a series of reflections, asked us to reflect on the disempowering story that we've been telling ourselves that prior to the program was existing on a subconscious level. And yet, how can we work with something if it's subconscious? And so the reflections we were doing were meant to bring us into awareness around these disempowering stories. So a few things happened. I remember listening to you coach someone on one of the calls, and they wholeheartedly shared what they thought was their disempowering story. And you said, nope, that's not it. And you emphasized that, as the saying goes in the mindfulness world, our issues are in our tissues, that knowing something intellectually is different than the kind of honesty required to fully acknowledge with your whole being, oh, this is what I've been telling myself. And that if we're going to live an integrated life of love and be able to engage fully in love, it can't be from the neck up, and we can't cut ourselves off from the signals that our body is trying to send us. So that was one piece, was I started realizing I really need to fully drop in to truths that I often veer or try to avoid when they even start coming up. So that was one. And then another is, early on in the course, due to all the work that we've been doing, I finally allowed myself to admit the extent to which an experience I'd had as a teenager had fed a story, this disempowering story, but that because of the nature of that experience and how upsetting it was, I had suppressed it, and judgment about myself had grown. And I felt actually quite ashamed about that experience. And when I actually asked if we could talk one-on-one, I called you about it. And in under 20 seconds flat, after I was sobbing and I said, oh, I just need to share this with you, I shared it with you, and you said very compassionately, but in an extremely straightforward way, that's it? And you said to me, it was just such a healing moment. You said, basically, you're human, Alison, and that's it. That's really all and you do realize that was 15 years ago, and you've grown, developed, evolved, and that doesn't need to be what keeps subconsciously fueling your decision making. And I think what I recognized in that moment is that it's incredible how much we can suppress as a result of intensely harsh self-judgment. And in the psychological safety that you provide, I was able to vulnerably share something and have it just be acknowledged without any judgment.
Beautiful. And that's what we as human beings, we really want and that we're looking for. And so often we have a facade and protection mechanisms that we think that we've handled, but we really haven't. And so in that moment of acknowledgement, boom, that's transformation, right? It could set you free, and it breaks the story because you come to, oh, wow, really?
Exactly.
Oh, I've added a lot of drama here and a lot of unnecessary suffering because it's focused on the past. So it's taking something that happened from the past and putting it into the present that's really putting you in a fear-based place. And then that's closing off the future to what you really want. So instead, we can transform that in that moment of awareness and lightheartedness, because some of us, we could be pretty heavy, right?
Yeah.
Heavy about ourselves and about, right. So that's the freedom there that you experience, because so often we're not receiving the kinds of acknowledgement that we want from other people, and we judge ourselves so harshly, right? So instead you could lighten it up, get real about it, become real and vulnerable, because ultimately when you meet your true love, that's what you're connecting. That's where the person is connecting with you. So we shift it to something real, to a future focus, leaving the past where it belongs in the past, right? We acknowledge what happened. It was traumatic. No question. We're not saying that didn't happen, but we look at it with a new lens. with different eyes that give you access to what you have now, to a new freedom.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so articulate. I just love talking with you. It's great. So, so Alison, what happened next? So now, how do you feel now? You met your person, and I'd love to hear like what your life is like now with Todd, because that's really so inspiring. So what happened?
So after the first part of the program, dating camp was extremely useful for me because for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a plan for dating, and I wasn't just a passive recipient of whatever someone else decided dating was supposed to look like. Um, and then actually, as you know, Bari, I met Todd at a retreat, and what's interesting is that it was a retreat I had told myself, oh, I don't know if I have the money for this. I don't know if I'm interested in going. And I had consciously said to myself, what would Bari say? She would say, feelings are not facts and commitments matter. So if you're committed to this process of dating, you need to put yourself in conducive environments. And I knew that it was a progressive Jewish retreat. I knew that there were few environments more conducive
for you.
For me. For that event, I made it happen. I showed up there, and hilariously enough, it was August 2016, and that was when I had, in the course, said I wanted to meet my person by.
Goals, very powerful.
I know. Right. So I was just chugging along. But what's funny, as you know, is that I left. I kind of felt disappointed. August has passed. I met Todd there, and we didn't start dating. And instead, there was a sense of we're not really at the right place. We became friends. He had just moved to the city I was living in, New York. And we had an open, frank conversation about the fact that it seemed like on paper we should be dating.
Right.
But we were at different stages of our lives. The chemistry wasn't quite there. And so, may you be well. You do you, I'll do me, whatever. So I kept putting myself out there. I did a global search on an online dating site. I started dating someone in another city that I met from doing that global search. Then I got really honest with myself. This person is not right. And actually, that person revealed how much I'd grown as a result of this program because he was so secure, clear on what he wanted, really wanted to be in a monogamous, loving relationship. It just wasn't the right match. Right. And I thought, wait, now I know this is possible. I just need to find the right match.
Exactly.
I'm attracting the right people.
Right.
Okay, this is a huge step forward. And then a few months later, Todd said, Alison, my feelings have changed. I was completely blindsided. What's hilarious is that I had just been telling him about a great first date I'd gone on. And then I thought, okay, so I'm going to stay open to this because I had, in part as a result of your program, really learned to check in with my body and with my whole being. And there was some part of me that knew this was important to explore. And so it's now been a year and a few months, and I just didn't know that it was possible to be in a relationship with someone with whom I can be fully myself. And I think what I mean by that is at various points in my life, I've heard things like, oh, you're too passionate, or you're too open, or he just embraces me. And it doesn't mean that he doesn't give me feedback. It doesn't mean that, but he's just so loving and accepting and really gets a huge kick out of me, and vice versa. And we can laugh together and cry together and have extremely open communication, have a great time on the dance floor, but also go to Shabbat services. He loves leading Shabbat services. He loves hosting Shabbat meals. And he's also extremely social justice oriented. And I think the other piece that I appreciate about him is that he's deeply committed to building an intentional relationship and isn't put off by that. And so I was telling you, Bari, we have these weekly team meetings that are blocked into our calendar where we have a little agenda we go through, both about our day-to-day lives, logistics, chores, whatever, and what do we feel grateful for about the past week and how we engaged with each other? And also, are there any aspects of our relationship that need a little tender, loving care? And so I moved to Jerusalem for a few months because he's on a fellowship year here, and because I could work remotely. And then we're figuring out next steps after this, and have begun conversations about engagement and marriage, which is exciting.
How exciting.
So, sorry if I'm going on and on, Bari.
No, this is exactly it. What I hear you saying, Alison, is that you are in a conscious, growing, healthy relationship with someone that you're attracted to, inspired by, who has your back. You're on the same page. Look, you're in another country. You're in Israel together, right? And so that's what true love really is about. It's not Hollywood. It's not fantasy land. It's about a practical coming together of your life. Talk about sharing a world view, right?
Yes.
Being on the same page, right? Core values, day-to-day life is what makes it so sweet. And it's what makes a relationship so enduring, because you're meeting every week. You're best friends. You're on the same team. And it's so sad. So many other relationships in the old paradigm are not conscious. They're not conscious. They're immature. Oh, what are you doing for me? And that's not what this is about. So you're in a relationship that is made up of two people with integrity, and most importantly, you're being vulnerable and real with each other. And there's nothing like that, because those who we inspired by, people who are phony or plastic or trying to look good, that's not what it's about. It's about really being held by each other, by being able to say anything and feeling safe without the burden of the past, of our own reactions and what does it mean to me. So what I'm hearing is a lot of empathy for each other and a lot of understanding. That's so beautiful. So beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks, Bari. I was going to say that I recently reread my empowering statement, and it's just such an exact match. I took out my wallet actually to look for it because I have for years carried around my empowering statement with me. It's just such a blessing. So
it's beautiful. So for those of you who are watching, a new empowering statement is a vision of the truth of your authentic vision for the future. And it's made up of three things: who you really are, because sometimes we don't really know who we are. We know who maybe we think we're supposed to be, that other people think, or what society thinks we should be, but it's a statement of your truth, of your essence. And it's also made up of what your vision is about how you want to feel in a relationship, your emotional needs, and then a vision of your truth, because your truth should never be sacrificed or compromised. And what we hear from Alison is she's actually living that vision and that truth with Todd as she designed it even before she met him. And then she took those steps to make it happen, and it's manifested, right? Because her vibrational energy, or in a practical sense, she did the steps and she used the proper words to date in an empowered way, and she got the result. And she's getting to experience the greatest thing in my mind. It's fine to be alone. We're not saying that we need a relationship to fix us, or it's just a beautiful thing to come together, two whole people, and live a life, right? That could be even a higher purpose than we can do alone. So I love that, Alison. And so my last question for you is there a lot of singles out there who are still in the old paradigm? They're still kind of stuck. They have the intention, they would love to meet their true love, but it, like for you, like for me, like our other successories, it wasn't happening. Instead, they're meeting the opposite of what they want, emotionally unavailable, or they're taking a break, years off, or saying it's not in the cards for them. What do you want to say to those people about what's possible and the timing for them, for their life?
Yes. So when I enrolled in the program, Bari, you said, I'm here for you until you're married. And if that's what you want, until you're married or until you're in the kind of long-term partnership that you want. And what I heard in those words, and no one else in my life had ever said anything like that to me, was I have 150% faith that this is a process that can get you to where you want to be. And to just be able to rest in that, knowing that there was someone else in the world who believed without a doubt, no matter how much I was doubting, that this was possible, gave me hope. And what I would say to, if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, either this is ridiculous or I'm not, this isn't relevant to me, is that if what you really want is to be in a committed relationship, marriage or not, in which you can fully, authentically be yourself, and if you're not sure what that means, don't worry, Bari will help you with that, and where there can be a sense of emotional needs being met, and just more than anything else, a sense of internal liberation and presence, where there isn't a sense of having to be on. For me, that's a big one. I don't have to be on. I can just relax. I don't have to constantly worry, how is he perceiving me? What does he think about what I just said? There's a sense of just being able, like, as you would say, Bari, with the right person, you can't really say the wrong thing.
So true.
Because if you do, you'll work through it. Okay. Because they're committed. So what I would say is that know that it's not only possible for you, it is completely available to you if you commit more than anything else to one virtue. And there's a Maya Angelou quote that helps me, that I actually remind myself of on a daily basis, that I would just offer, which is that no other virtue, no other goal, no other anything can be achieved in a consistent way without courage. And that courage is the key. And so I would just offer that take the courageous step, experiment with this process, and know that there is one other person on this earth who truly believes, and has a process to lead you through, truly believes that no matter what you've gone through, you can and will find not just love, but healthy love. And so I just want to say, Bari, I'm so grateful. And also that being in this kind of relationship requires also a level of courage, vulnerability, and authenticity that's pushing me out of my comfort zone on a day-to-day basis. It isn't safe. And I'm grateful to be having that experience. And know that if you're wondering, is this going to take 50 years? You'd be shocked by how quickly it can happen if you just wholeheartedly show up with courage.
Right. That's beautiful. It does. It's a process that can totally happen very quickly when you leave your comfort zone and you're willing to go into something that will help you to make it happen. But it really does require that commitment to it. I often tell people, like, you don't have to worry about the how. We have that covered. Right. We know how. It's like you want to take a plane trip from New York to LA. You're not asking, well, how many people are going to be on the plane, or how many stewardesses there are going to be, or what's the engine. You just want to get on the plane and get to the destination, flight attendant, right? And that's what it's designed to do, is to get you to the destination, but not just get you there, to have the tools and skills to have a growing, conscious, and healthy relationship, which is just such a beautiful experience. So Alison, thank you so much for so beautifully and articulately sharing your experience and your life now with Todd. I cannot wait to meet him. He sounds like an extraordinary person.
He's a great person.
And I'm so excited to really follow your journey and to just watch what you guys do together in life and what you manifest together, because I know that you're both up to really big things. So great. Thank you again so much for your time. Sending so much love, and we'll talk soon. Thank you again.
Great. Thanks, Bari. Bye.